Okay, I got a few disturbances along the way whilst I was making this login system. So I'll try and correct a few errors from the last video and then build from there. So here's what we had actually worked on. We had created a login section, we had created a register section. The unfortunate bit, we had actually put everything on the same spot, but would want to actually break these down and then have them be two separate elements, whereby we're then saying we log in and then we are sent to one part of a page. We also get to register, and register should also take us to our login. So that's the idea that we've got. So in the previous section, we had actually just created our index, which contained both our login and our register. We had our header, where it would get our style sheet. We'd also created our styles, where there was not much in that style sheet. We had also created our database connection, and everything was good to go. So in this particular lecture now, we want to add a few more things. We want to be able to see how we can actually design our page. So would want to play around with some of the content or the context on our page so that our page looks better. So we want to modify how some of these elements look. So the first bit, we might want to modify the register and the login. So we do that in our CSS. I've got too many things open. Let me just open my VS Code, and then we start working with some of the styling. So the first thing we want to work with is our headings, and I think our headings, we put them as heading 1. So we want to be able to say our heading 1. We then specify that it's going to be text transform. We want to capitalize everything. We want the font size to be larger. We also want the font family to be a different font. Okay, that's the font that we want to work with. We click on save. We come back, we refresh. It's really not showing us much. Let's just try and change the color in case we did the style sheet in not the easiest way. Okay, we've got our header. Our header contains our style sheet, which is styles, which is fine. Okay, let's just refresh and see what that gives us. So our style sheet is actually not being picked, which is okay. Let's just try and figure out what's happening. So I actually just needed to refresh my browser so that it actually starts picking up the changes that I've made. Although there's still some variance in what I'm doing because it's supposed to transform my text and make it capitals, but it has not done that. But at least I'm guaranteed now that my CSS is working. At the same time, we need to also modify our elements. So let's say we want to modify each of these elements. We can simply come to that particular part and we say each element that has a p tag, we want to modify it. So let's say we want to put a class and then this class becomes our input tag. So we then call it input tag, where we would want to put it for all the p tags so that we can modify them. The busiest part of creating our website is the design. And if we at least understand how to work on the design, we can be able to finish up and put content that um, can help the rest of our design process or getting our code. So we call this an input tag, and with this input tag we want to put some content in it. So we want to work with our context or our content, and here's how we want to put our content. We want to be able to have a minimum height, where our minimum height, we want this to be 40 pixels. We also want a padding top, where we want this to be 4 pixels. We want a padding bottom, where we want this to be 6 pixels. So given that attribute, we can refresh and then see that we have changed our content, or we have changed the appearance of what each of our tables are doing, or each of our inputs are doing. So this sort of gives us a rough idea of what we want to view. We can also then say we would want a border. Let's put it at 1 em. Actually, let's remove that and let's try and put 0.2. I think we'll also still need to play around with it on our elements themselves. So we'll actually need to play with the input and the output and how it will eventually look. At the same time, we can also put a button, and we want to play around with our button, whereby we want to have a width of 40%. We want to have a color, a background color for our button. We want it to be aqua, and then we want a border. Would also want it to be aqua. Okay, so if we save that, we refresh, we'll actually see that our buttons have a different look and a different appeal. But maybe the size is too big. Let's reduce the size. Let's say we want the size to be 50%. Okay, so we can have it looking that way. Maybe let's not put it as a percentage, let's put it as pixels. So we can say we want to have 30 pixels for the width, and we want to have a height of 10 pixels. I hope that matches because we've got our text that's a bit of a specific size. Yes. So that then makes it difficult to see. Let's make this 60 pixels. Let's make that 30 pixels. So one other issue that you would be needing to understand is as you're working with this, you need your your sizes of the fonts and the size of the button themselves. So let's increase that as well. Let's make that 90. And it will look like that. Maybe let's increase it a bit. We can make it 120 and see how it will look. Yeah, a little bit better. I think we can work with this so far and use it the way that it is. I think design-wise, we can leave it at that. But now we want to have this section giving us uh, some extra. So what is the extra that we'd want? We'd want to be able to say this can be our index where we've got our login. This can be our register where we've got our register. And we'd want to be able to say if we want to register, we are then taken to the register page. If we want to log in, we are then taken to the index page. So that's the concept that we want to work with next. So to do that, we want to then break up some of our content as follows. We want to be able to go to, we have a new document. We then save this as register. So we save it in the main folder and we call it register. We change that to PHP. We click on save. And for our register, we then want to put some of the content that we've got in our page. So we have our include once, header.php. We also want to have our footer.php. So we do it that way. We type in our PHP, include underscore once, and then we want to put our footer.php. Click on save. We also want the main section. And then in the main section is where we want to put our register. So I simply cut that and I put it in my register as follows. So as it stands now, I'll have a register. I'll also have I have a register and I have an index. So at this particular stage, we wanted to be able to say the moment we have posted our information, we want to go back to our index page. At the same time, we should also be able to say if we don't want to submit anything, or if we have not submitted anything, we simply put a return to main page. And then this we put an href, where our href will then take us to index.php. Click on save, and then we are good to go. So having done this, or having put the following setup that we've got, we can now be able to also add our forgot and our register on the main page. So we put register.php, click on save, and then we also have our register as it stands. So if I refresh, now I should be able to see my login. I should also be able to see my register and be able to move between the two pages. Okay, let's actually make this shorter. Let's actually just put this as home because it's our home page. So if we refresh, we can now be able to choose between the two elements that we've got, and this becomes our main layout. From this layout, we also have our forgot. So we'd also need to create a forgot password aspect where it's just simply going to follow the same concept, but it will only have either the username or maybe an email. So we'd want to put something similar to our login for our forgot. So to do that, we'll simply create a new text file. We go to File, we save as, we then create a forgot.php, click on Save, and then now we can be able to create some content similar to our index. So I think you can copy the index code and then change it to suit what we need. So this then becomes home, and we don't want the register at our forgot. So our register has to go. All we just have is home, and then this then changes to submit. This then becomes text. The placeholder now becomes email, and the top tag becomes username. Okay, so if we save that, we can now be able to change our index, and then we put forgot.php, click on save, and this then gives us a better output. So if I can just type that bit and I say forgot.php, oh, I spelled it wrong. F-O-G-T-G-O-T. I spelled it wrong. F-O-G-O-T. Let's see. Yes. If I do it that way, then it works. So let me just actually get the wording right. So that's how I saved it. And on the register, we don't need it. On the forgot, we also don't need it. So it's just on the main page that I had done it wrong. Also, the link for my home is not working. Yes, for the forgot, it's not working. I need to take it to index.php. We click on save. Perfect. So now all my pages are working, although I need to change the forgot page to put it as forgot. So as it stands, we've got a working set of links where each element takes us to either one of the values that we want to work with. So given this as our particular instance, we then now need to map or to create our database based on the content and the context of what we've got. And we can then have our working login system. So I worked on the content a bit more and redesigned our page, whereby our buttons and our links, I made them look different. So we've got our forgot, where we need either username or email. We've got our submit. We've got our home, where it's our login, our username and password. We've got our register, where we can enter information that we want to have. We can always go back home. So pretty much this is what we have in our content. So maybe let's go to some notes, a bit of notes. We are saying we want to be able to do the following. We want to be able to register where this updates database. We want to be able to forget or forgot password, whereby updates a query from database. We also want to be able to work with a login where it gets information from database. Okay, so these are some of the things that now we want to work with and have as part of our learning. So as it stands, we've done most of what we need. However, we would need to create a database now. So our database, if I'm not mistaken, we had actually called it something to do with login, where I think this was the database, but we had TBL users, where we've got username, email, first name, last name, password, date created. Here we've got username, email, first name, last name, and password. So that's fine. I think this can still work, where we can enter this information. So we want to be able to use this page as part of our page or what we'll enter into the database. So maybe let's talk about how this entire concept works, and then we'll put some content that we can use to actually add to our database. So we're saying on this register form, we would need to come back to register, which is this form. We want to be able to post our information, and our information should then get the contents of the input. So we want to send our username, we want to send our email, we want to send our first name, last name, password, and confirm password. In this particular instance, we need to check the two passwords if they match. And then we also need to send the first name and the last name and the email to our register. Okay. And then this is the design part where we see the interface and it gets our information. When our interface gets our information, we will click register. we want to be able to come to this side and then create a new value that will then insert into this database. So that's the next concept we want to actually work with, and then see how we can have it function or work to our advantage. So let's get working on that now, and we proceed from there. So we want to work on the register, but there's a few changes that I might just want to put before we start working on this. I was actually thinking soon after this, I can put a p tag where my p tag gives me already registered. And we put a B and a B tag. Click on save. We come back to our login system. We refresh and we see that we're asking, are you already registered? Then we go to home. Okay. Um, Maybe let's also put this in a p tag as well, our link, so that it at least looks better. Can save, we refresh. Um, this is why I don't really enjoy styling, because it has so much that goes into it, and it's most of the work that you'll be having when working with designing a page or designing a system. So as it stands, I think we are good to go. We can now go home. You can go on our forgot. You can also go on our register, and this is what it looks like. So the first thing we need to work with is the register, because the register gives us access to our system. So we should work with our register so that it gives us the information that we're looking for. At the same time, we would want to put some PHP content in it. So we're simply saying with our PHP, we can be able to put specific elements that we might want to see. For example, we can say for our PHP, echo register, like that. So if we run our page, it then is just supposed to tell us register. So why are we putting register here? We want to be able to state that when we're actually working with um, our code or our content, as we add more code, we want to be able to say at this point we get error produced shows up here. Okay, so we want to be able to say whatever error we've got, we want it to show up in this particular instance. We'll get to this a bit later, but maybe we'll also be able to style it and show whatever element that we are hoping to get. So for now, I want us to actually start working on how this will then connect to a database. So the easiest way to connect to a database is to put a database connection on this actual page. Okay, so to do that, we would need to specify in our login where our database connection comes from or should be stored. So we've got our dbcon. Let me just verify we're using login. Yes, okay, we're on login and then it's register.php. So fine, we need to use login. dbcon is our database connection. So what we need is to state that whatever element we want to work with must use dbcon. So dbcon should then be included in our PHP. So we can then say uh, after our main, we want to now put PHP code that gets some information that we want for our register page. So first thing we need to do is we need to put an include, and then our include should then have our content, which is includes, yes, includes, then what was the name of the database? dbcon. dbcon.php. So this part would need to make a connection. Let's just test to see if we are working on the same spot. Okay, we didn't get an error, so it means we've got the same thing. We've got our includes and we've got our dbcon, which means includes, that's the folder that we're working with, and we've also got dbcon, which is perfect. So at this particular stage, we've actually made a database connection. And then with our database connection, we now need to match uh, the name. We now need to match the name to what we post. So the name to what we post would then need to be used uh, to do our registration process. So the first name that we need is the name of the button, or the name of what we will use to send this information. So to do that, let's maybe do it because I might fail to explain it properly. So we're saying if there's a function in PHP which is isSet, which checks for whether a value has been initialized. So we want to check under post, and in this post we want to be able to see the name of the button. So which would be register, submit, whereby we want to check whether that has been clicked on. And if that is true, then we want to do a few things. So let's say we have done a post, or we have put something there. Let's say echo, and in our echo we then just put submit has been clicked on. So in essence, we are saying the following. We've got our PHP where we're getting our database connection. And then we want to say if isSet, which is a function in PHP, it gets the post value of a specific named element, which is our button. If this is true, we want to say submit has been clicked on. So let's just go to register, click on register, but register is taking us to, okay, we can't see what I've done. Maybe I think because of the way I have put my context. Okay, let's actually change this part so that we still my form action. I'm changing my form action because my form action is taking me out of register. So I've put it back to register. I think this should then give it better work. Okay, register, register, perfect. So this is what I wanted to. This is what I wanted us to see. The moment I click on register, we are simply saying we don't really know what has happened before all of this, but the moment I click on register, it should then tell me submit has been clicked on. Okay, and then at the same time, we can also put the same concept for the other button. Let's say I put is set, and then in my is set, I say posts underscore posts, where in my posts I want to put what's the other button called? Cancel. And then we also echo cancel has been clicked on. Like that. I'm hoping this works. We'll see if we've got an error. Yes, we've got an error. I think you might need one ampersand. Let's save. Let's refresh. So it doesn't work on two values. Okay, so let's just take it back to what we had. We'll click on save, refresh. Okay, submit has been clicked on, cancel has been clicked on. No, it only works on submit. Okay, let's just do that. We want to put comments on this so that it doesn't show. I'm hoping that works with the comments. Refresh. Yeah, all right. I think I can have it work like that. So saying register has been submit has been clicked on. Cancel also should be clicked on. Okay, let's just yeah, but this really is not all that important. Okay, let's just open a file we want to put some of these notes as we proceed. So we'll just remove that. Let's actually get into more of the content. I'll correct as we proceed if we need to correct. So what we are simply saying is we want to say as long as this has been clicked, we then want to have a some code that supports this. So since we're actually using the name property, anywhere where we have named any of our elements, that's the name that we want to be able to work with. So let's say at this particular instance, we want to have our username, our password, and our email. So we need to create variables to support this. So we can put a variable and then we say USR NM for our username. We can also say $ USR PD for password. We can also say USR EM for email. Okay, that stands for email. This gets user email. This one gets user password, and then the next one gets user name, like that. So what this then gives us is our variables. But then our variables now, we need to initialize them. We need to also get the values from our initial click. So to do that, we simply put an equal sign, we then put a $sign, we put an underscore, we then put a post. And then our posts contain some brackets. And within our posts, we then need to put single quotes. So what this then means is we want to get all the values in each of these elements. So I can just copy paste, and then at this particular instance, I put email, I put password, I put username. So why are we doing it this way? We are getting our values, or we are getting our variables, and these variables would then be used to get the information we want to insert into the database. So what we are simply saying is, for username, if we come to the interface, we've got this text box. So if I enter a username, let's say I call it young doc, that is my username. We get the name of this element, and by getting that name, we are saying that then becomes our variable. And then what are we giving our variable to know what that variable is? We're saying whatever has been input there, we want to post that as our variable. So we're getting our variable username, and we get to post what is contained in the input box. Same goes for the password, same goes for the email. Okay, and the moment we've done it this way, we can now save and go back to our Opera. We refresh. So we then put in our young doc. We click on register. Now we've got an error where it's actually telling us about password, line 23. We will get to that error, But all we are saying is now the moment we have click on submit, we have posted, or we have actually taken whatever is in that place and used it somewhere. Uh, I think we need to make this a small p. I don't know if that's the error that we're getting. Okay, I've saved that. Let's just refresh. Yes, I think that was the error we were getting. Okay, perfect. So at least that is sorted. So we've got our username, we've got our password, we've got our email. This simply means these are the values that we want to uh, give out. However, I think I left the first name and the last name. We need to add them as well to our list of variables, where we would need to actually include them as part of the list. So, like we were saying, we need to add the first name and the last name and make them as variables. I think we put it as first name and last name. We also need to type them out as we have declared them. So we can call it $USR FN for first name is equal to $posts, where we put the content in our variable. We also call it USR last name, which we then say is equal to $_posts we open and we close brackets. The quotations went outside of what I want them to be. We put single quotes there, we put some space, we put some space, and then now we want to put the name, which is first name for the first element. We also want to put the last name, which is the last element. So given this, oh, I forgot $sign there. So given this, we've actually taken each of our elements and we now have them as they should be. So the next element we might need to do is we need to check for our variables. And our variables, since we've actually included them, we might just need to check and see if our variables work. So I can put an if statement within this if statement, whereby we are saying if our username is equal to nothing, we want to be able to let our user know what is missing. So we can simply say echo enter user name. I put a semicolon. I want us to that for the rest of the variables. So we then have the next one, which is password. The next one, which is email. The next one, which is first name. The next one, which is last name. So we want you to enter password. We want you to enter email. We also want you to enter first name. We want you to enter last name. Okay, if we save this, we refresh. So it's just going to give us enter username, enter password, enter first name, enter last name. So let's say we put a username, put an email, put a first name. It then just tells us to enter password and enter last name. So if we enter all the information, it will not give us anything because we've entered our information. So that is how we can work with our if statement to then check whether our information is entered. The next element we want to do now is we want to do a query. And a query simply means we want to be able to collect the information that we've taken and use that to get information from or to our database. So to do that, we then need to design a query, and our query can be as follows. Our query should be, we want to check whether the individual we are trying to register exists. So to do that, we are simply saying we need to create a query, and then the query then gives us our information that we want to work with. So we can say check user can be our query. We then say is equal to, we put our quotations, we put a semicolon, and with our check user now, we want to then verify where we want to check this user from. So we need to come to our database. This is where our database now works. We want to check our user from our table. And our table is as follows. Our table is TBL users. And TBL users is what we need to work with. So we can simply say let me just copy this from our PHP myadmin. We want to check user, so we want to select everything from TBL users. And then this becomes our query, whereby we are saying check user should get all the information from our table users. At the same time, we then want to have a query value, whereby we say we want our MySQL query to get two values. So the first value should be our database connection, DB, and the next value should be our check user query. Okay, so I think with this, maybe let's just try it out and see if we have not put an error somewhere. Perfect, perfect. So it's working, although we've got one error. We can enter the information that we want to enter, but we don't have the database value. Let's just look at what our database value is. Should be con. I think that should be the database value. Let's just try it. CONN. Okay, let's do it that way. Refresh. Perfect. So now we can get our database thing because our error is now gone and we have safely connected to the database. So I think for now we've done quite a bit. I will end our video here.